I am Tom Schuster, and this is Christianity Unearthed, the 4,000-year rise and fall of Christianity. I'd like to invite you on a journey to understand how one of the world's most enduring and influential traditions lasted for 2 millennia. Why did the form of Christianity that became Catholicism rise above so many others? How did it not only survive, but become a global force in a world of powerful empires and ambitious rulers? These questions fascinated me. After years of research and writing, I realized that sharing this story out loud would make it even more vivid than in book form. In this series, we'll explore how the Judeo-Christian world evolved, how memories were formed, reshaped, and sometimes rewritten over time. We will look at how languages changed, how monotheism emerged, and how historical scholarship helps reconstruct what actually happened. This isn't about undermining faith. It's about offering a richer, more nuanced understanding of how this tradition grew and adapted over the centuries. And together, we'll walk through these 5 ages and see how the past still shapes the present. This series is the history of the Judeo-Christian world, not as a single story, but as a long inheritance shaped across thousands of years. Before we begin with Christianity, we need to step back. Not decades, not centuries, but millennia. Because Christianity is not the beginning of this story, but is part of a much longer human attempt to carry meaning, authority, and identity across time. Long before doctrine, religion functioned as a way of remembering, a means of transmitting meaning across generations. That function did not remain constant. It changed in stages. Across roughly 4,000 years, the Judeo-Christian world passed through 5 broad ages. You can think of these ages loosely as the stages of a human life: ancestry, birth, youth, maturity, and life after authority. Not as a metaphor to be pressed too hard, but a way of orienting ourselves in time. These ages overlap. They bleed into one another. But together they form the long arc that this series follows. Age 1. Ancestry, from 2000 BC to the year 0. Inheritance before identity. Before Christianity, and largely before Judaism took its later shape, religion is ancestral. Meaning is inherited, not chosen. Belief is embedded in family, land, custom, and repeated practice. The sacred is not abstract, it is local. It is encountered through story, sacrifice, ritual, and memory. This is also a world that is not monotheistic in the modern sense. The ancient Near East is polytheistic. Israel emerges from within a Canaanite religious world, not outside it. Early Yahwism exists only alongside other gods. The claim is not yet that only one God exists, but that one God should be worshipped above the others. Even the biblical texts themselves bear witness to this layered past. They are not written at once or authored by a single voice. They are edited, combined, and reworked over centuries. Powerful northern Israel and tiny Judah do not simply merge traditions. After the destruction of the northern kingdom, Judah inherits and reshapes its history, absorbing northern traditions, stories, and divine names into a new national narrative. What looks like ancient memory is often retrospective construction. The Babylonian exile marks a decisive transformation. Ideas that later feel foundational, cosmic dualism, apocalyptic expectation, Satan as an adversary, judgment beyond death, enter Israelite thought only after contact with the imperial religions in exile in Mesopotamia. Monotheism as a full theological claim is late. It takes centuries to solidify fully. This is the ancestry of Christianity, and it matters because the earliest Christians are Jews. For the first century, Christianity is not a new religion at all, but a Jewish movement shaped entirely by this inherited world of texts, expectations, and memory. To understand Christianity, you must understand what it inherited. Age 2. Conception, birth, and childhood. From the year 0 to about 500 Common Era, or CE as we will label it from now on, also known as AD or Anno Domini. This is an age of formation through plurality and survival. Christianity appears in a crowded religious world. It is neither unified, nor fully formed, nor inevitable. Jesus' followers are Jews who believe that the Messianic age has begun. They remain embedded in Jewish thought, scripture, and debate. Only gradually, under pressure, do they separate. The destruction of the temple forces a reckoning. Jewish Christianity is pushed outward into the Greco-Roman world, into cities like Antioch, Alexandria, Caesarea, and later Asia Minor. Rome, at this stage, is a minor player. Multiple Christianities emerge side by side. Jewish groups, Pauline assemblies among Gentiles, Gnostic movements, Marcionite churches, ascetic and philosophical forms of Christianity, often far more developed than the later winners. There is no single authority, no fixed canon, no agreed creed. Texts circulate in Greek. They are copied and recopied by hand for centuries. Errors accumulate. Changes are made, some accidental, some deliberate. The copies that later translators rely on are often many centuries removed from the originals. In fact, there are more textual variants in New Testament manuscripts than there are words. The canon itself is a late decision. Many texts are excluded. Others survive only because their opponents quote them in order to condemn them. When power finally shifts in the 4th century, the winners do not merely argue, they eradicate. Alternative churches are dismantled, their property is taken, their writings are destroyed, their leaders are exiled or silenced. For centuries, we know these lost Christianities only through hostile descriptions written by their enemies. Then, in the 20th century, something extraordinary happens. Buried texts resurface. Entire libraries, hidden deliberately, preserved accidentally, give us direct access to the voices that were silenced 1600 years earlier. For the first time, we can see what these Christians actually believed. The Second Age is not about orthodoxy. It is about competition, memory selection, survival. And this is where everything later becomes possible. Age 3. Young Adulthood. From 500 to 1200 CE. This is the age of confidence, expansion, authority. Christianity now enters its age of confidence. It is no longer fragile, it is no longer plural, it no longer negotiates its place. Now it governs. The church absorbs the machinery of empire and learns to wield it. Bishops rule cities, monasteries become economic engines, law, doctrine, and administration fuse. Faith is no longer only believed, it is enforced. This is an age of expansion and of violence justified as devotion. Armies march under the cross. Holy war becomes conceivable. Crusades are launched, not only eastward, but inward, against rival Christians and inconvenient populations. Cities are taken, relics seized, populations slaughtered, all in the name of sacred order. At the same time, this is an age of astonishing creativity. Cathedrals rise stone by stone over generations. Theology hardens into system. Universities emerge. Art, music, and architecture strive to make heaven visible on earth. But the price of certainty is exclusion. Alternative voices vanish. Memory is centralized. What survives is what authority preserves. Christianity no longer asks whether it will endure, only how it will rule. Age 4. Full adulthood. From the years 1200 through to 1540. This is the age of power under strain. By the Fourth Age, the Church is immense. It owns land, crowns rulers, commands loyalty across continents, but it also begins to fracture. The distance between teaching and practice grows impossible to ignore. Wealth accumulates at the top. Renaissance popes rule like princes, wage wars, forge alliances, and leave behind children who must be hidden, legitimized, or advanced. Spiritual authority and dynastic ambition blur. Criticism no longer whispers. Reformers rise from within. Some call for poverty, others for purity, others for a return to the earliest sources. Councils are promised, delayed, diluted. The Church responds with discipline and defense. But the ground is shifting. Texts circulate faster. Literacy spreads. People compare what they are told with what they read. Confidence remains, but it has become brittle. This is not yet collapse, but it is strain, visible, structural, irreversible. Age 5. After authority. From the year 1517 to the present day. This is the age of survival without monopoly. When the break finally comes, it does not come gently. Christendom fractures, Europe bleeds, faith hardens into borders. Wars of religion tear populations apart. Cities empty, entire communities flee. French Protestants scatter across Europe and beyond. Belief becomes a reason for exile, not belonging. The Church fights back. The Counter-Reformation mobilizes art, discipline, education, and surveillance. New orders rise. Doctrine sharpens. Rome regains control, not of Europe, but of itself. And then, slowly, the world changes again. Empires fade. Revolutions erupt. Enlightenment questions dismantle inherited certainty. Scripture is dissected. Authority is challenged, not by rival churches alone, but by reason, science, and history itself. Christianity does not disappear, it adapts. It becomes global rather than imperial, fragmented rather than singular, chosen rather than inherited. It survives in storefront churches, revival tents, cathedrals turned museums, underground congregations, and digital networks. It loses monopoly, but it keeps memory. This is not the end of belief, it is belief after authority. We can tell this story as history, as events, as centuries, as blood, belief, ambition and survival. But we can also step back, because when we do, a simple shape appears. Imagine this history as a curve. The 2,000 years of Christianity are broken into the same 4 ages. Age 2, Dispersion, where a human life becomes a religion. At the beginning, there is no direction, just dots, scattered communities, scattered ideas, scattered memories. Nothing points the same way. This is Christianity in its earliest form, a human life becoming a movement, plural, experimental, unresolved. Many futures are possible, no path is fixed. The dots have not aligned. Age 3, Alignment, where a religion becomes an institution. Gradually, direction appears. The dots begin to line up. Authority emerges. Memory is selected. Structure replaces improvisation. Christianity acquires momentum. It becomes coherent, then administrative, then imperial. It knows where it is going. This is the religion becoming an institution, a rising line. Age 4, Acceleration and Fracture, where an empire carries the seeds of its own fall. The line steepens, power multiplies, reach accelerates, confidence becomes absolute, but exponential systems are unstable. The very forces that drive expansion create strain. Centralization breeds resistance. Certainty produces backlash. Growth outruns coherence. The curve turns. This is the church as empire and the beginning of its undoing. Age 5, Redispersion, the age of belief after authority. When the structure breaks, the line dissolves. The dots return. But this time they carry history. There is no single direction anymore, no monopoly, no unified voice. Belief fragments across cultures, continents, denominations, and consciences. This is not a return to innocence. It is plurality after empire. Christianity survives, but without command. We now arrive at the hinge, where the crucial point becomes visible. Not the age of cathedrals, not the age of popes and armies, not the moment of collapse, but the moment before any of that existed. A time when there was no Christian church in the sense that we later mean it. No canon fixed on a shelf. No creed recited by rote. No capital city issuing commands. Only small communities scattered across the eastern Mediterranean, meeting in houses, arguing over letters, telling different stories about the same man. Some believed that the law still bound them, others did not. Some thought that Jesus was a teacher, others a divine being. Some wrote, others taught, but most would leave no trace at all. And none of them understood what they were creating. The apostles were not founding a church. They were responding to events that they believed had happened. Those who came after them were not building an empire. They were dealing with persecution, disagreement, scarcity, and survival. They made choices because choices had to be made. They edited texts because clarity was required. They argued because agreement mattered. And when opportunity presented itself, they grasped it. Not cynically, not with foresight, but because survival often depends on recognizing openings as they appear. At every stage, people acted within the limits of what they could see, shaped by the situations they found themselves in, the pressures bearing down on them, and the possibilities suddenly available. History did not unfold according to a plan. It unfolded through responses and through opportunities seized. At that moment, nothing was inevitable. There was no single direction yet. No line had formed, only dots. Once the line did form, alternatives vanished. Texts were selected. Others were lost or destroyed. Voices were amplified, while others were silenced. What survived would later look obvious, but it wasn't. This series does not begin at the height of power. It begins here, before authority, before alignment, before memory hardened, with Age 2 of Christianity. I call this age the winner's tale. It is a close examination of Christianity's earliest centuries, when multiple futures competed and only one survived. Not because it was destined, but because it won. Season 1 of The Winner's Tale begins now.